clarify his controversial remarks, which opponents claim amount to an assassination threat against Hillary Clinton. North America correspondent Michael Vincent reports from Washington.
Mr. Trump has spent the past 24 hours being heavily criticised by Democrats and even by senior Republicans. The Speaker, Paul Ryan, said yesterday's comment about gun owners maybe being able to stop President Hillary Clinton from appointing judges who would change the gun laws as an offhand comment. He called that a bad joke and something you shouldn't even joke about. Democrats called it far worse than that. But today Donald Trump has attempted to dismiss it as part of yet more evidence of a rigged system, and the media, of course, to blame.
A big part of the rigged system is the press itself, because they can take a little story that isn't a story and make it into a big deal. Happens so much. And speaking of that, remember this. We have so many things that we have to protect in this country. We have to protect our Second Amendment, which is under siege. Remember that. It's under siege.
Essentially, you've had people like the former CIA chief, Michael Hayden, come out and say, look, when I was telling my guys about this sort of thing, it's not what you say when you get to this level, it's what people hear. And if you remember the public, he said, you'd have been taken outside and questioned by the Secret Service. Now, according to CNN, the Secret Service has had several conversations with the Trump campaign, and it'll be interesting to hear if they ever put out any formal statement as to what those conversations were. Donald Trump's campaign, and in fact Rudy Giuliani, his sort of warm-up act before these big rallies he's been doing, has come out and repeatedly said on national television it wasn't just an offhand comment. This wasn't. He was talking about. In fact, they're not even saying it was a joke. They're saying it was a statement about gun owners' rights and their ability to get out and activate, basically politically. Whereas Hillary Clinton today, as you're about to hear, sees it as something much more sinister about how Donald Trump uses language.
Words matter, my friends. And if you are running to be president, or you are president of the United States, words can have tremendous consequences. Yesterday, we witnessed the latest in a long line of casual comments from Donald Trump that cross the line.
Let's get more on this. And from California, we're joined by Brandon Finnegan, an election analyst and the director of poll website Decision Desk HQ. And Brandon, thanks very much for joining us this morning. How damaging have these latest comments been to the Trump campaign?
Well, I mean, considering where Donald Trump is currently polling against Hillary Clinton, I can't imagine that this latest batch of comments and controversy is going to actually hurt him any more than what has already come out in the last couple of months. I mean, it might depress his numbers slightly, maybe a percentage point or two. But again, when you've had as many comments as he's made, you've had as many controversies as he's had, it gets to a point of saturation after a while for most of the people that are voting here in the United States.
Yeah, you say referring to where he sits in the polls at the moment. So just set that up for us. Where is he? And how are the two candidates looking at this point?
Well, since we're not seeing yet a fade in the bounce for Hillary Clinton, she enjoyed a very sizable bounce out of the Democratic convention to the point that now she's polling almost 10 points ahead nationally and about that much or more in a lot of the swing states. So Trump was at least neck and neck with her in a lot of the swing states as recently as right before the Republican convention, and in the last few weeks, he's completely just dropped off the face of the earth versus her.
Now, you say perhaps it can't do any more damage, yet in the past couple of days, we've seen Republicans come out, some high-profile Republicans. In fact, 50 of the most senior national security officials released an open letter saying that Trump is unqualified to be commander-in-chief and, if elected, would be the most reckless president in US history. Damning words. Surely that has significant implications for his campaign.
I really don't know how much it's going to do to hurt him more. Again, a lot of the voters that were still on the sideline for Trump were Republican-leaning voters who were unsure about his expertise with foreign policy and economics. And they've not seen anything in the last few weeks that have made them feel more comfortable. And you can see it in the polling. It's why his numbers have actually slipped. He hasn't consolidated fully Republican support, and while Hillary Clinton has clearly consolidated Democratic support and is even now starting to pick up on independents. So this is, by pretty much all purposes, pretty damning for him. But it was already he was already in that state for much of the last few months. What he needs desperately is to consolidate and to get people on his side, and that has not materialized. All these things have come up that have just kind of reminded people who did not like him for these reasons why they don't like him for those reasons. But you're saying that's not going to shift opinion among his core group of supporters. Is that group still made up of white, male, lower and middle income Americans? Well, yeah, that's been his core group the entire election cycle, from the primary all the way to the general election. And if he had been able to consolidate more of the Republican base beyond that, and other voters, suburban voters, college-educated voters, he would be polling much better and much stronger against Clinton right now, against Hillary Clinton. But instead, he's managed to chase a lot of those voters away, where his favorability ratings with those voters has gotten worse. His favorability rating with Hispanic and black voters has gotten worse, if it was possible. And so he's kind of in a position where I could be wrong here, but he's in a position where he's pretty much at a bottom. The people that are going to support him no matter what are going to support him no matter what, and that's what you're seeing right now in the polls. We have actually seen some policies released recently, which, not surprisingly, they've been overshadowed by some of these comments. Let's just take a look at economic policies with both candidates, compare and contrast here. Do you see any significant differences in the two policies, particularly as far as creating jobs and also as far as trade is concerned? Well, look, both parties' candidates are going to always say that their economic policies are going to create jobs. The opposing parties' policies are going to ruin jobs. It's just how it is. Clinton has been a little bit more nuanced in outlining her jobs program. She's made no bones about how she's going to raise taxes on wealthier Americans, but that's typically that just kind of goes with the flow with Democrats in general. They are always advocating raising taxes on wealthier people and on businesses to provide more services for people on the bottom end and to provide more economic opportunities for those people in the lower middle class. Whereas Republicans have almost always focused on deregulation, lowering taxes on all Americans, which, because richer Americans pay more taxes, disproportionately affects and benefits wealthier Americans. They both try to argue that their policies and their policies alone are going to bring back the jobs or increase jobs. As for whether they're going to impact that, the economic costs of each program need to be looked at. How much of an impact of dramatically increasing taxes, even if it starts minimally, will that affect businesses and people who tend to have more purchasing power, which are wealthier Americans, on the Democratic side? And on the Republican side, Donald Trump has been really big on renegotiating trade deals, which could, of course, create new trade imbalances, which could, of course, impact imports and exports negatively, more so than positively. His whole spiel has been to try to fight for these lower class, middle class, blue collar workers, claiming that they've been impacted by these trade deals and by these programs. And that seems to be how he's trying to tailor his economic program. So, and Brandon Finnegan, you're saying that at this point, Donald Trump cannot win the presidency. What would he need to do to find more supporters and be with a chance? I mean, everyone on the right that you'll talk to honestly about the numbers know the numbers are very bad for Donald Trump. He's losing in every conceivable path to get to 270 electoral votes. And that's because, again, he's chased away suburban white voters. He's chased away black and Hispanic voters even further than the Republicans already badly do with them. There was recent national polls that had him down to like 1-2% amongst African-American voters. That's practically an asterisk at this point. And you do need pockets of these voters in these bluer collar areas that he's been targeting, like Ohio, Pennsylvania. He needs to do better with other Hispanics in Florida. He needs to do better with college-educated voters to have any shot at all in winning the Philadelphia suburbs. but he's chased them all away. Basically, he would have to pull a complete 180 from how he's been campaigning for the last few weeks. He had an opportunity with the Republican convention. He did not take that. He's had an opportunity post-convention. He has not taken that. And after a certain point, watching the election cycle, you can keep saying he's going to change, or he's going to change, or he can do this, or he can pivot, he can do this, but he's not going to.
All right, Brandon Finnegan from Decision Desk HQ, thanks for your analysis.
Thanks for having me on, Andrew.
The top story.